Okay, I think we'll get started. This is Eric Sweden with NASCIO, and we're very glad you're all here to join us for this edition of our series on data management. We're doing a whole series of webinars on data management throughout 2017, 2018, probably ongoing into the following program year as well. So we are publishing on the topic of data management, and as you'll see later, we're kind of anchoring everything on the DAMA framework, which is published in the Data Management Body of Knowledge, which is just currently now, as of this summer, in its version 2. So we encourage all of you to download the DMBOK version 2. Dr. Anne-Marie Smith has been a part of DAMA for a long time, was instrumental in version 1. And we've had Anne-Marie here speaking to us in past, and we're glad to have her back again. This webinar is sponsored by the NASCIO Data Management Working Group, which operates under our Enterprise Architecture and Governance program. So again, we're really glad you're here and looking forward to this topic and your questions. And we will answer all of your questions either on this webinar or as part of our published Q&A. As you can see, what I put in the chat there is we'll publish the webinar recording, the slides, and then Anne-Marie and I will work on the Q&A after this presentation and make sure all questions have been answered. Anne-Marie comes to us from EW Solutions, and she has a very impressive background in data management. That's why she's here, and we've been learning from her for I think about 5-6 years now. We've had her speaking to us. Anne-Marie, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming to NASCIO and talking to us about data management.
Thank you for having me, Eric. It's a pleasure to be with you again and to talk to you about enterprise data and information management. You'll notice that the title of the first slide is Enterprise Data/Information Management. The discipline is titled Enterprise Data Management, Enterprise Information Management, just data management, just information management. It seems as if the professionals in this field can't decide what to call it. As you will see throughout these slides, I've decided to vary the words so that whatever it's called, I've addressed what every practitioner uses, whatever term. So sometimes I'll refer to this discipline as Enterprise Information Management. Sometimes I'll refer to it as Enterprise Data Management. Sometimes as EDM, sometimes as EIM. And sometimes, as the DAMA DMBOK refers to it, as just plain old data management. Whatever term I use, it's the same thing. Enterprise data management is the collection of disciplines that manage data and information as an asset to the organization. And as such, it helps in so many ways. Because organizations, whether it be a state government, a federal agency, or a private enterprise, almost always did not plan the development of their IT environment or especially the development of their management of data and information. It just grew. Unlike every other resource of any enterprise, every government agency, every private enterprise planned their accounting function. They planned their marketing function. They planned their personnel/human resources function. But they never planned their data management function. Using enterprise data management, an organization can avoid quality problems with their data and information. You can reduce IT development life cycles And that doesn't mean just for enterprises that build applications in-house. So few companies, so few state agencies, so few federal agencies do that today. Most organizations either multi-source or outsource their development processes. That makes enterprise data management even more important because you have the need to reduce the life cycle of the outsourcing or multi-sourcing process. You can lower project failure rates because you have an idea and an understanding of where the data exists and through what process the data flows. With enterprise data management, you can enable enterprise applications more effectively, and these are almost always purchased, whether it's a data warehouse, an enterprise resource planning package, customer relationship management, supply chain, etc. And very importantly today, you can provide effective analytics and cross-unit, cross-agency, cross-departmental information sharing for decision making. One of the biggest words right now in any area, in any business, in any organization is analytics. Without effective enterprise data management, the performance of your analytics capabilities falls dramatically. And in many cases, it can't be accomplished. So we're going to talk about how to do effective enterprise data management through the use of a framework of vendor-neutral, industry-leading, free, love that word, free, framework. But what's the value? Why are we doing this? The value of data management is at the organizational level. It's not at the departmental level. It's not at the unit level. It's not even at the agency level. It's at the organizational level. Because every state, every federal department, meaning federal large enterprise, and every private enterprise has at its organizational level the need to either increase revenue or decrease costs. You have the need to reduce risk. You have the need to manage costs and manage or reduce complexity, and the need to improve performance quality. Some examples, especially of things like reducing risk, decrease the use of data integration issues through better access to high-quality data from multiple sources. Many state governments these days are multi-sourcing their data. All the data isn't coming from one single source. Well, without a good enterprise data management framework supporting those multi-source initiatives, you're going to increase your risk of not having high-quality data. With a good data management framework, you're going to improve the capabilities and improve the chances of having high-quality data to find the right information, to answer queries, which improves your quality of performance, to improve decision-making. Every state government has to make decisions quickly. Gone are the days where you could make a leisurely decision on budgets, on spending, on response time. This is the year 2017. Decisions have to be made quickly, they have to be made with trusted data, and they have to be backed up with that fact, with that data. And that performance quality has to be based on data that comes from trusted sources. All that value can be determined by the use of a good data management framework. So let's talk about the 8 steps to enterprise data management success. I spent the last 7 minutes telling you that having a good framework is valuable. Let's talk about how to achieve that. These are the 8 steps to success with enterprise data management. Each one of these steps is crucial. You can't stop any of them. You can't eliminate any of them, regardless if you're a state government, if you're a federal agency, or if you're in private enterprise. EW Solutions has worked with quite a few state governments, quite a few federal agencies, and many private enterprises. And every time we've done this, we've used the DAMA DMBOK framework. And these 8 steps are crucial. We've based our data management program on the DAMA DMBOK framework. Why? In a few slides we'll explain why, but in a nutshell, it's vendor neutral. It's proven through countless thought leaders, and it is comprehensive. The second step, develop and implement an enterprise data strategy. You don't know where you're going unless you've plotted out the plan. The data strategy tells you where you want to go and why. Assess the current state of your data management efforts across the organization and make sure that assessment includes every aspect, every component of the DAMA DMBOK. Develop your future state plans for data management based on the DAMA DMBOK framework. Not only are you looking at the current state, but you're going to look at where you want to go. Make sure you have a data management program team. It's a small team, but it's essential. Many organizations think they can get away without having a program team. This is the step that many organizations think they can avoid, and this is the step where most organizations fall through the chasm. Don't eliminate this one. Create a phased, high-level implementation roadmap for each DAMA DMBOK component. This means getting from your current state to your future state. This is the how at a high level. Then take that high-level phased implementation roadmap and develop and implement sustained communication and socialization plans for data management. Communicate what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. And then begin your first implementation efforts. These 8 steps for EDM Success are the 8 crucial steps. They all involve using the DAMA DMBOK as the framework, and they all contribute to any organization's success with data management, especially state government. Because state government, being a very large entity, needs a framework for data management that's vendor neutral, that's comprehensive, but that's also manageable. And let's talk about the framework. Why do we need a framework? Because a framework offers a common structure to organize the processes and the roles for the activity. It provides a context. We're talking about the context of data management. There are many ways an organization can look at data management. This framework provides a specific context so that everyone in the organization is talking the same language when it says data management. And a framework allows the organization, in this case, the state government, to adopt and incorporate the best practices that are encapsulated in the framework into a coherent approach. At the same time, allowing the organization to do a little customization so that the framework can fit into the organizational culture. You'll notice that I said a little customization. The framework should not be taken apart completely, because then it's no longer a framework. The framework should stay relatively solid and should look like the framework that was originally adopted. But you can adjust certain components inside the framework to fit the organizational culture. That's where the little bit of customization comes in. Here is the overview of the DAMA DMBOK framework. It is now in its second edition. The second edition is an enhancement to the first edition. The second edition does not contradict anything in the first edition. The second edition is a deeper exploration of the first edition. You will notice that the DAMA DMBOK framework really is simple. It's a wheel. In the center is data governance. Data governance is the most foundational component of enterprise data management. Data governance is the establishment and implementation of policies, processes, standards, and procedures that govern the management of data and information as an organizational asset. You can't do any of the other components of enterprise data management without having a data governance program. A strong statement, but a true statement. Around data governance are all the other components of enterprise data management. Data architecture, data modeling and design, data operations and storage, data security, data integration and interoperability, documents and content, also called unstructured data management, reference and master data management, data warehousing and business intelligence, metadata management, and data quality. All of these components are related to one another and to data governance. For example, data governance contributes to the successful performance of all the other components. And many of the components contribute to the success of many of the others. Each organization determines how the performance of each component is implemented by the organization. And the framework, the DAMA DMBOK framework, provides best practices, standards, and guidance on procedures. It does not tell you how to implement the framework. It gives you best practices, it gives you standards, and it gives you guidance on procedures. It gives standard terms and definitions and functions and activities. It identifies some standard roles and responsibilities. It identifies standard deliverables and metrics, generally accepted principles, and generally recognized best practices. From here, each organization takes this material and then adapts it to its own organizational needs so that it makes the framework its own without changing the basic structure of the framework. How do we do that? We do that by building an enterprise data strategy based on the DMBOK framework. And these are the points of the strategy, the fundamental points. We start with a current state assessment based on the DMBOK framework. Then we go to a future state assessment. From the future state assessment, we look at the gaps between the current state and the future state and analyze them. The current state assessment and the future state and the gap analysis are done for the organization's approach to data management as a whole and for each one of the components of the DAMA DMBOK framework. So in the current state and future state, we look at data management as a whole, and then we look at each component. So what's the current state of data architecture? What's the current state of data governance? What's the current state of metadata management? What's the current state of data quality management, etc. Then we look at what the organization wants for the next 2 to 3 years as the future state of data management as a whole, and then each component of enterprise data management. Where do we want data governance for the organization to be in 2 to 3 years? Where do we want data security to be against best practices in 2 to 3 years? Where do we want reference and master data management to be in 2 to 3 years, etc.? Based on the current state and future state, we look at the gap analysis. And in the gap analysis, we're looking at the differences between the current state and our desired future state. And in that analysis, we're also looking at skill resources. What do we have now? What do we need to achieve the future state? From there, we look at the high-level roadmap. And then we look at a phased implementation plan. For the next few slides, I'll walk you through how to achieve the development of this through the use of the DAMA DMBOK. So, doing an enterprise data management assessment. Can't manage what you haven't measured. And the first part of the measurement is doing an assessment. You have to do the current state assessment before you ever decide where you want to be. EW Solutions has done quite a few. I would not say the word countless because we can count them. We've done quite a few assessments for government agencies, state governments, and private enterprises. The current state assessment at the enterprise level for all of data management, and then for each EDM function or component. Whether it's in existence or not, you look at the business's perception, you look at technology support, you look at prior efforts, whether they were successful or failed, and you make sure you look at the cultural climate. Does the organization accept data management in the current state? Does the organization accept data governance? Does the organization accept the management of metadata, etc.? You do the same thing in the future state. What's the climate expected to change in the next 2 to 3 years? For most government agencies, we look out for the rest of the administration. Unfortunately, there are many challenges in doing a future state assessment with state governments, since administration's change can mean a change dramatically in the acceptance of data management. But we do our best to plan for continuity, especially in the gap analysis. We look at resources and skills assessment in the gap analysis, including the difference between current state and future state. And then we make recommendations. From there, we go to the phased implementation for the roadmap. Future state recommendations. Where does the organization want to be in 2, 3, or 4 years? I used 4 years here because sometimes we've been asked to do assessments at the change of an administration. And that gives us the opportunity to look for the future state across a 4-year administration. We would never take an assessment past 4 years, whether for a government entity or for a private enterprise, because businesses, governments, and technology change at such a rate these days that past 4 years is not considered a viable future state projection. In the recommendations for improvement, we look at the enterprise, also called the strategic view, and then we look at the tactical views for each functional area. Recommendations for improvement in data governance, recommendations for improvement in metadata management, recommendations for improvement in enterprise data architecture and for data architecture at the application or tactical level, etc. One of the ways that an enterprise data strategy can have an immediate and lasting impact is the development of a mission and vision for enterprise information management, enterprise data management. Many people I've heard say mission and vision statements are worthless. They're just words, either on a piece of paper, on a board, on a wall, and they don't mean anything. I beg to differ. The development of a mission statement and the development of a vision statement, you'll notice they're different, but they're complementary, can energize not just the data management teams, but the entire organization to embrace, not just accept, but embrace data management and its value to the organization. The vision statement is the future view. What do you want this organization to look like concerning data management at some point in the future? What's the desired future state for enterprise information management from this perspective? Write your vision statement for enterprise information management. It's part of a good data management strategy effort. And then the mission statement. This is the being statement. The statement that encapsulates how you want data management to act in the organization. Shown here are actual mission and vision statements from a real client used with permission, and they're representative of mission and vision statements that EW Solutions has helped create for many clients across industries and across government entities as well. I challenge you to think about writing mission and vision statements for your data management efforts for your state governments, and then socializing them. We'll talk about communication and socialization in a few minutes. The next essential step in the 8 essential steps for data management success is developing your enterprise data management program team. This is one of the crucial steps mentioned in the DAMA DMBOK, but many organizations overlook it because the organizations often say that it's building a little empire. It's not. It's a small team. It's vital to success for any program. It needs experienced staff because these are the people that coordinate all the efforts that I've mentioned and will continue to mention through this presentation. This small staff is responsible for, 1, understanding the DAMA DMBOK framework and how it relates to the organizational value. 2, it enables the organization to manage data across every single aspect of that organization's life. not at a detail level, but at a program level. And 3, the program team acts as evangelists, as champions for data management throughout the organization. This is perhaps the program team's most important role, the evangelization of data management as a permanent discipline, not as a project, as permanent as accounting, as permanent as human resources, because without that permanence that's brought through continualized evangelization, data management falls apart when leadership changes. The next crucial step is the development of a phased implementation roadmap. You have your current state, you've developed the future state and the recommendations, and you have your gap analysis. So, at a very high level, what are we going to do to get from the current state to the future state? This is one slide that shows for the core data management components 6 months of what turned out to be a 24-month implementation roadmap for a real client. On this left here, we have the Enterprise Data Management Program Development. We have EDM Project Management. We have Metadata Management, and we have Data Governance. We have the EIM Program Development, the activities expected to start here for the months of January, February, March, April, May, and June, first 6 months. Then we have the things that will happen from project management, the program office, and their inclusion of enterprise data management activities into the project management lifecycle. This is a frequently overlooked step and something that the EDM program team has to be involved with in coordination with the project management office. Metadata management. For this particular client, metadata management was considered to be an EIM core program function. And in fact, for most organizations, it is a core discipline. So here are the activities, and they would start in February. And they're starting around the same time as data governance. Actually, data governance is starting a little earlier, which is normal. And here are the base activities for the Enterprise Data Governance Program. As I said, this EIM phased implementation roadmap was laid out for 24 months because that's the budget we had. And this was the first 6 months, one slide. Each one of these little boxes was a stream. Each one of these little boxes had its own project plan because each one of these boxes is a separate project within the EIM program. And each one of these brown boxes was a separate project within the PMO office project program, PMO program plan, And each one of these blue boxes was a separate project in the data governance program plan. So you have the whole enterprise data management program, and then each individual little box is a separate project. Now, all these efforts are happening throughout your state government, but only the people involved in the projects know about them. That's not a good thing. In fact, that's a very bad thing. Why? Because programs and projects that don't have good communication don't get funding. And without funding, programs and projects are cut. No bucks, no Buck Rogers. It doesn't happen. You don't get any more money. So, communication is essential to enterprise data management success. One of the activities of the EDM Program Team is to develop an enterprise data management communication plan. You have to have a plan so you can guide your communications efforts. You have to be able to target diverse audiences because each audience may have a different perspective on enterprise data management. You want to ensure that each audience receives the right messages so that those messages are memorable, they're effective, and the communication plan ensures that the messages are coordinated. The communication plan written by the EIM Program Team, usually assisted by a communications professional, determines the goals of the communication, determines your target audiences, determines the strategies you're going to use to communicate, finalizes your key messages. You only want a couple key messages. Determines the activities you're going to use to communicate, and then determines how you're going to evaluate whether your communication plan was effective. Because once again, you can't manage what you haven't measured. You don't know whether your communication plan is effective unless you've identified in advance how you're going to measure it. Here are some keys to communicating enterprise data management successfully. Start with a consistent message. What do you want to communicate about your program? That message will change over time. Your communication plan is a living thing. You want to make sure you have some business cases that demonstrate your need for enterprise data management and how the return on investment is realized. Sometimes the return on investment will be tangible, sometimes it won't be. Make sure that both tangible and intangible benefits are communicated. Educate your organization in data management concepts and the approach using the DAMA DMBOK framework. I didn't include that in the box because there were too many words to make the box readable. Measure and report results regularly. That's probably the biggest key to communicating enterprise data management successfully, other than starting with a consistent message. Measure and report results regularly. And provide support to communications through varied methods. There are many ways to communicate today. Identify the various methods and choose a variety. But make sure that all of this is based on the enterprise data management concepts and the DAMA DMBOK framework. Remember, you're planning a program, not a project. The projects are dependent on the program as I showed in the phased implementation roadmap. And project plans vary depending on what you want to accomplish. Any organization can use this format as a guide. It doesn't matter the size or the industry. The state of Delaware and the state of Rhode Island can use this, as well as the states of California, New York, Texas, Pennsylvania, Illinois. I'm sure I'm forgetting another group of large states. It doesn't matter how big or how small. We've used this with large federal agencies. We've used this with small businesses. We've also used this with some of the largest private enterprises in the United States. Doesn't matter. Here's a program planning example in a different format from the swim lanes that I showed a few minutes earlier. Data governance, metadata management, overall data management, and master data management. Each one of the swim lanes, as part of the program planning, has a series of projects. Same approach, just a different graphic to demonstrate that EIM is a program. Each one of the swim lanes is a program within data management, and each one of the little boxes is a project. How do you measure success? Every organization will have a series of metrics that is a combination of similar and unique. In the DAMA DMBOK framework, every chapter, data governance, data quality, metadata management, etc., has some measurements for successful implementation that you can use as guidelines. Here are a few examples that can start your thinking on overall metrics for an enterprise information management program. Your organization, your state government, your agency may use these metrics as a guide, or you may decide to go to the DMBOK, read a chapter, and say, aha, I've discovered the metrics that I think are appropriate for my implementation. Whatever route you take, make sure that the metrics are 1, valid, 2, culturally appropriate, 3, that you use them consistently, 4, that you communicate them widely, and 5, that you document them and their results. Make sure that your projects are iterative. Don't try to do a 12 to 18-month project for which you have no interim milestones. This is a program. It goes on. It's continuing, like accounting, like human resources. Good estimate for a project cycle is 3 to 6 months. And here are some examples for some project that can be done in 3 to 6 month cycles. Developing an initial set of data governance policy with data governance approval. Identifying and collecting, performing profiling on the first set for data quality benchmarking. Every organization, especially at a state government level, will discover what iterations work best for them. But make sure that you have an iterative approach. This is crucial. Every time we consult with an organization, I'm asked the same question. Are there any enterprise data management components in the DAMA DMBOK framework that are crucial? Do I have to do all of them? Well, the answer is, chances are you have some components of every single DAMA DMBOK component in your organization. Every successful EDM program has 3 foundational components. Data governance to start with, metadata management, and data quality. Without those 3 foundational components, along with the development of an enterprise data management, enterprise information management program team, you don't have enterprise data management if you don't have those. Most organizations also develop data architecture, master and reference data management, data warehousing, and BI. And then, of course, the very technical parts of the DAMA DMBOK, data storage, data delivery and operations, etc. Those go without saying, because without the technology, none of the less technical aspects would be possible. Like the 8 critical steps for success, we have some critical recommendations. Recommendation number 1, enterprise data management is an essential discipline for all state government success. State governments live and die with data and information. As more data comes into a state government and as more data goes out, every state government needs a framework for managing that data holistically, especially with the onslaught of analytics and the use of multi-sourcing and outsourcing to collect, store, disseminate data. State governments need a framework that is comprehensive, vendor neutral, and free. We are emphasizing the DAMA DMBOK framework for those reasons. Every state government needs to implement an enterprise data strategy and needs to implement it and have it be instantiated through administrations. A data strategy starts with a thorough assessment, current state and future state, and a vision for that sustained future state. Communication and change management must be sustained for data management success. Do not hide your light under a bushel basket. Don't do all these wonderful projects and not tell anyone. And each component of the DAMA DMBOK has value for all state governments. The organization will determine the level of implementation of each component, but each component exists for a reason.
Okay, very good, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for that presentation. We do have one question, and this might spawn some other questions as well, but I'll read the question, but I think there's other aspects here that we need to deal with as well. The question is, how do you meet business outcomes through an enterprise information management strategy and program? And I think part of this is how much does the business need to know you're doing a disciplined EIM? How much of the focus early on needs to be on a specific business problem, which could then be used to prompt support for going forward? So that's kind of the general area we'd like you to talk about, Anne-Marie. So getting it really tied back to the business and outcomes. And we are very interested in program outcomes from our agencies. You know, are we actually delivering higher ACT scores? Are we actually serving more people through HHS programs? Are our streets safer? That kind of thing. So
well,
how would you respond?
That's actually the subject of an entire presentation, business outcomes, because that's the development of the business case. The data strategy is where that starts. Chances are you've got a problem that your current data management activities aren't solving. Or chances are you have a problem that you are struggling to address because you have some challenges with data and you're identifying issues with either data quality, data sourcing, the lack of data policies, the lack of actionable business metadata, the lack of a consistent data architecture, or the lack of understood data integration. And as a result, you're not getting the outcomes you want. That business problem is your business case. And that business case, if you frame it properly, will help you get the enterprise data management program started to get you the better business outcome. So for example, how do we improve ACT scores? Well, currently we don't have, let me just make this up as I go along. Currently we have ACT scores sent in by school districts in the 522 school districts in the state of New Jersey. Each school district is supposed to report the following data in the following formats. Not every school district follows that format. So we get data reported in various ways, which makes it difficult to do data integration. And the data isn't governed at the state level by data governance policies that are state mandated. And therefore, we don't have high data quality upon which we can base our reported ACT scores to higher education authorities. So we have to do a lot of manual rework, which costs the state a lot of money. Let's just say it costs $1 million, just for hypothetical purposes in this discussion. And it also cost us $1 million to collect this data, and it cost us another $1 million to reformat it. I've now cost us $4 million. Okay? By implementing the following 8 things in enterprise data management across every school district in the state of New Jersey at the cost of $1.2 million, I can save us $7.8 million, $6.8 million. That's the business outcome. That's the business
As
case.
well as the higher ACT scores, right?
Well,
We
if you
hope.
know that the if you know that the average ACT score is 16 in 2016,
Yeah.
and you want to get it to 22, but if you don't know that it's 16 now, because the best you can do is get a sort of average because the data quality is not that good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know what data you want? How do you know what score you want to get it to? Because you're only guessing it's 16.
Yeah.
Could
Right.
be 15.
Again,
could already
that
be 20. You just don't know.
brings together data management and analytics are inseparable. So
Exactly.
that's
I didn't even get to the analytics part because I would have been talking for another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But we have an entire set of business cases solely based on analytics. But you can't do analytics without good enterprise data management.
Yeah.
And in this example, the number 16 is a swag. I have 552 school districts in New Jersey. I'm guessing 16 because that's what 120 of them reported, but 122 reported. But the other 400, they were reporting, some of them didn't even report, so we took 16 because it was the single most consistent number we got. So how do we know for certain that 16 is the really good score to report? We don't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's the best we can do. And still it cost us $1 million to get that, $1 million to remediate it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Here's another question for you, Anne Marie.
Oh, did that help?
It sure did. We got to thank you on that one. So here,
Okay, I just
here's
saw
another
that now
question.
because I was thinking I wasn't looking at the screen.
When looking through the framework, there is little mention of structured versus unstructured data. I think you addressed this a little bit in the beginning. Does the framework distinguish between these two data types, or will the frameworks apply to them in parallel?
Very good question, Barrett. There's actually an entire section called Document and Content Management. That's one of the slices of the DMBOK. And Document and Content Management used to be called Unstructured Data Management, but the Unstructured Data Management people liked it so much. They actually wanted that renamed because they renamed themselves to Document and Content Management. So they have an entire chapter in the version 2 that's now called Document and Content Management with their best practices and standards and the alignment with structured data management is identified in that chapter. However, much of unstructured data is parallel. There's metadata. There's an architecture. There's governance. There are activities for using it in decision support, data warehousing, BI, whatever you want to call it this week. There's security. There's data storage and operations. So there are activities for managing it. But there is not an entire separate framework for content management in the DAMA DMBOK. It's a slice. If you want to know more about document and content management, go to the Association for Document and Content Management, which is called ARMA, A-R-M-A.
Okay, and I'm putting a couple of links out here relative to the body of knowledge. I put Technics Publications has actually been partnered with to publish. So I put that link. I'm going to put the DAMA link out here too, just so people can access that. Okay, very good. Let's see. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour here. I put the links.
Okay, to download the DAMA DMBOK,
Yes.
you can't download it for free.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it will cost, but
It's $49 on Amazon.
Okay. Hey, let me put that one out there too. Hang on one second. I did see Amazon.
Technics
Here it is.
Publication. $49.
Yeah. Well, it's a long URL. So if you go on
Just
Amazon,
go to Amazon and write in DAMA. All you have to do is go to Amazon and type in DAMA-DMBOK. That's all you
now
have
another
to
thing that's out there, Anne-Marie, is the DAMA Dictionary of Data Management, 2nd edition. So that's another thing people could look at as well.
Yeah, that's sound like a teenager. Yes, if you are interested in terms, words, and their standard meanings, metadata. That's a very good publication as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're arguing, or should I say discussing strongly, the standard meaning for terms, having the DAMA dictionary is a really good resource.
Okay, very good. Well, again, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to close out this edition of our webinars on data management. I want to give you just a little bit of a heads up. Coming up next in November is David Marco on the topic Successful Meta Data Management Strategy and Implementation for State Government. Coming up in December, David Marco is coming back to talk about managed metadata environments. And then next year, we'll be getting into data warehouse, business intelligence, steps for successful implementation. We've got as well, we're going to intermix with these topics stories from state government. Montana, Arizona, as well as Georgia. So stay tuned, and then as well, we're continuing to look for and recruit presentations on data management from our states and our corporate partners. So Anne-Marie, thank you so very much for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back in future. And thank you all for joining us today, this afternoon, for this webinar. We will go ahead and close the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, Eric. It was a pleasure. And thank you all for attending.
Okay, very good. All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.